Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we could take our seats and we'll continue with our next session. I welcome you all back. We are running quite late. Mr. Ayub, you have 30 minutes. All right. We now move on to the next panel discussion. Learners retain information more effectively when they are introduced to study material through audiovisual methods. With this in mind, this session will have discussions on the latest audiovisual tools that can facilitate the best learning experience in classrooms around the world. I request you all to welcome on stage, he's already here, Mr. Dr. Mark Ayub, Professor of Business Administration at IUBH International University, as well as the panelists, please.
So, welcome everybody to our next panel, which has the beautiful title, The Audiovisual Experience and the Future of Education. So, let's look at the first part, audiovisual experience. This conference is going on now for 2 days. I want you, the other panelists, as well as the people in the audience, to briefly close their eyes and their ears, if possible, and imagine what they would have learned the last 2 days without audiovisual experience. Okay, the answer is quite easy, almost nothing, which underlines the importance of the audiovisual experience, I guess. Second part of the topic, the future of education, is a very nice topic for all of us here in this panel. As Albert Einstein said, forecasts are difficult, especially when they deal with the future, or to put it differently, nobody knows about the future in general, neither of the future of education in particular. So whatever we come up with here is about to be challenged some other time. I would like to give all the other panelists the chance to present them before we start discussing about the topic. So ladies first. You have now.
Thank you. I'm Simriti Singh, and I'm coming in from India. I run a center for special needs. It's called Inayat, and I believe it's a word that resonates with everybody. Inayat means kindness. So we work with children on autism spectrum, the Down syndrome, dyslexia, and other kinds of learning disabilities.
All right, so, well, good evening. My name is Leonardo Caporarello, and I'm a professor of negotiation skills, and at the same time also the delegate rector for e-learning, that for us stands for extended learning at Bocconi University in Italy, in Milano. And at the same time I have also the opportunity to be the head of our innovation center for developing educational processes. So that's maybe, I'll try to give my point of view, my contribution from this standpoint.
Good evening. My name is Vijay Juggernaut. I'm a consultant working in the National Health Service of the UK. I also got a formal teaching role in School of Medicine at Kiel University. I teach the doctors how to teach. So I put a bunch of doctors in a room and I teach them how to teach. It's good fun. I love it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vidya Manohar Sharma from Hyderabad, India. I teach mathematics, mostly to the students who are preparing for the prestigious examination of India, which gives admissions to engineering courses. Basically, it is called IIT JEE. But I happen to use the technological instruments for my delivery of the lectures, and I also have been into online teaching for the past 15 years, taught in 9 countries, so therefore I would like to put forward my point of views on this audiovisual. But of course, when the word audiovisual itself comes, technology automatically comes into mind. Otherwise, even in very old education system also, the audio and visual, it is very much necessary. What is written on the board has to be seen, and what is said by the teacher, it is to be heard. So, but audio visual, when we say, automatically we go to the technology that at present. So I believe that's how it starts. Our discussion is going to start with the technology.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a core issue, technology. All the panels, all the keynotes, and many of our thoughts circulate around that topic. And so far we heard rather polarizing views on that topic. What happens if you primarily rely on a technology in a presentation? We have seen before the coffee break what happens. Pardon my French. And yeah, maybe that's a question we can discuss about. What's the role of technology in future education, be it in childhood education or in university teaching, or master level doctors teaching doctors?
All right. So, well, if I may be a little bit provocative when this question or this type question come to me, I used to say that looking to the future, we also do not forget to start from the basics. So I have seen a number of projects, a number of innovation projects where people are putting a lot of money in technology, thinking that technology is going to solve any issue. And to me, this is very, very wrong. So basically, technology, of course, can help us augmenting the portfolio of opportunities, the portfolio of methods. It's a huge augmenting source of things. But we do not need to forget about the pedagogy that is behind the scene. We are educating. This is creating a kind of an environment where learning has to happen. So technology is very important, is absolutely, but it's not the only pillar. So this is the way we look at this part of, so we need to understand actually like the generations, so who is coming there. If we are talking to doctors, if we are talking to young students, it can be 5-year-old students, or it can be, like in my case, we have, if I'm delivering a course at the Global Executive MBA, I have a certain type of participants in front of me with some seniority, some background, all the differences they have from a culture point of view, from, again, an education point of view. So those elements must be also become part of the function, if I may say like this, just as we have Professor Math here. So, but that's my point of view. So do not just focus on this. When I say this to technology, try to use a more holistic perspective. Sometimes, I don't know your point of view also here in the audience, what happened in your case is, but it seems that sometimes people say, okay, let's buy things, let's buy stuff, and then this is going to realize or make a new learning process happen. Maybe it's not the case. That's a little bit provocative, that's my point of view.
For me, education is about depth and breadth of learning. And what I mean by depth is how well the students are engaged and what impact it's going to have on the learners. And from healthcare point of view, I can give one example. If you haven't watched this, you have to watch the YouTube video on just a routine operation. So this is about a patient who went for a routine operation. And the patient was badly managed and ultimately died. So this video is a deconstructed video that was narrated by the husband. And it just revolutionized how we practice in operating theaters. It doesn't matter how many lectures you give and how many conferences you run, but that just one 10-minute video completely changed how we practice in operating theaters. And then coming to the breadth of learning, we want the education to go for a wider reach and also within a short span. In healthcare, the Board of Medical Education UK says that we have increasing number of medical graduates but reduced number of clinical teachers. And the government of India wants to open another 75 medical colleges because they don't have enough doctors to treat the patients. If we do not have enough doctors to treat the patients, where are we going to find doctors to teach the doctors? And I would like to quote Reginald Hall's paper, which was published in British Medical Journal. He recommended that we need to use more audiovisual tools because there was increasing number of medical graduates and reduced number of clinical teachers. Do you know the year that paper was published? It was 1969. And 50 years down the line, the times have changed, but the history repeats. So I think the audiovisual tool has got a big place in healthcare education.
I'll just take it on from there. So it's not just healthcare or older people. I also feel that in a pre-primary classroom, audiovisual tools make so much of a difference, especially for children who are on autism spectrum. We've been able to introduce some kind of didactic material inside the classroom which they can engage with. With a purist teacher, from a purist school of thought would say that screen time for children should be banned. But we've been able to find out how interesting it has been to use electronic materials, some kind of a mobility devices for our children who are handicapped. And that's where I believe technology plays a very, very important role.
For me, the technology advancement, I have a few concerns about its intervention into the education as such, and especially what you are talking about is about the special needs, where it is human intervention probably is a little difficult to figure out that a particular child needs that kind of attention. So whereas the technology really can help, and it gives the belief also, yeah, probably it will be difficult for you maybe to convince the parent that your child has got this difficulty. Whereas the technology really emphasizes that, yeah, it proves something, so therefore child gets a treatment better. But ironically, the other way, for the K-12 segment I am speaking, it basically comes under guided education, where the more equipment must be with the teacher than with the student. So when technology, audiovisual, as it suggests, that the child studies on his own. Probably at K-12 stage, it will be little difficult to believe that all the children of that age will be really getting educated with the only technology. And one more thing is that disconnect it is bringing with the society. I can take an example when mobile technology or mobile connectivity was given to the society, people might not have thought that everybody walking on the road will be looking into his mobile today. That was a facility. It was a great facility at that time when it was introduced. But what it has transformed today, you don't see people, even while walking on the road, every individual, even educated individual, knows that his focus must be on the road. But no. So I am afraid that what kind of disruption this technology introduced into education, especially into this primitive. So as an executor, I am posing a question rather than discussing a solution at this point of time, because I am not an inventor.
So again, we heard different views on the purpose and value of technology in general and in education in particular. Technology is a fact today, and if you follow the trend reports in education, it seems as if technology will prevail even more in education. How, nobody knows, but maybe now it's the time to question the role of the professor and the student and technology. If you think of those three as a sort of Bermuda Triangle, yeah, you have the professor, the student, and technology on the other side. How does technology today and tomorrow alter the role of the professor and the student? Does it do that at all, or not? What do you think?
There is a serious discussion going on LinkedIn very recently that which one is to be preferred, face-to-face or driven by digital. At present, there are some around 60 comments, and maybe some 3 or 4 are saying that it should be digitally driven. All others are saying that face-to-face. And that anyhow, LinkedIn has different profiles and not necessarily to K-12. So that is the reason I would like to see that whether the technology that is more hyped towards education or really, no doubt that technology has got its own benefits. There is no argument on that. But how it is going to be used for the education, and a lot of talking was going on anyhow, the holistic education. So how technology is going to really develop that holistic part of that and social behavior. So, and while talking on the social behavior also, my friend Balaji was mentioning that like it is, earlier it was like students sitting on one chair, and other one is through chats. So how communicative it is going to be, those cognitive skills or whatever you call, or those social behavior, how it is going to be affected by because of this technology advancement into. So probably.
Well, yeah, I do agree. I mean, technology is already changing, and eventually this is going to change even much more than we have seen so far, the way we are designing the learning experiences. And so basically, let me make a very simple example. Well, I have to teach one specific content, okay, it can be any subject. But if I'm using a different method, let's say a business game that is online, right? Or a simulation, or a business simulation, this is the topic I'm much more familiar with. And so, you know, how this can really change the experience that our professional students, they have within the learning space. It can be any, I'm not talking necessarily that is in a class or in distance, whatever, any type of setting. Because actually you can talk to number of students, you can differentiate the experience they may have in playing different roles. You can introduce unexpected events that is like in real life. So you can try to make it more interactive, more practical, relevant for them. You can give them feedback, continuous feedback, so you can also, you know, they can also see actually the effects of their actions, their behaviors, and you as a professor can also see how they are progressing or not. And so you can eventually readjust again, maybe the next classes or the next lecture, the next thing that is going to happen. So that's just to give you an example of how technology, the intersection between, you know, this triangle, as you were saying, between learners, professors, and technology and the content, of course. You know, so to me, this is the way technology can really impact, and that's already here, actually. So we are maybe familiar with this. We personally, at our university, we have done a number of investments in this direction. And, but this is not the future, actually, at this moment for us. This is the state of today. And we see we are done a number of research or something, collecting data, and some of them have been already published. Some of those will be published in the next few weeks, where actually we are collecting data, understanding if people appreciate, if actually there is a kind of learning input. Other than the satisfaction, you can ask, you know, participants, are you happy with the process or not, with the class, the course, the module? But other than this, what is the impact? Have you really learned something, a capability or a skill or a competence? So I see a huge contribution, basically, yeah.
Sure, I think, but as an early childhood educationist, there could be technology which will be an enabling tool, but will certainly not wipe away the teacher, the empathy that she brings to the classroom, the compassion, and that's all that we need, a human touch in a classroom as well.
I practice andragogy, so my viewpoints will be slightly different. Adult learners are very different, and they want the learning to be flexible, and especially in medical education, we are moved towards more online education, whether it's webinars or e-learning, and that's picked up. I mean, we have been running taught courses on postgraduate medical education for the last so many years in our university, and last month we launched this online course, and the subscription was nearly, twice the numbers what we had for taught courses. So yeah, for adult learning, I think technology has got a huge place. Thank you.
Yeah, so far we focused a lot on technology, yes or no, and how. And likewise, the question of how we conduct education today and in the future. Maybe we should now focus a little bit more on the content, the question what, yeah, what education? If you think of mega trends like digitization, demographic change and whatnot, you just have to sum up 1 plus 1 to come out with the forecast that a lot of labor will not be needed anymore in the future, or at least not in the way labor was educated until nowadays. So maybe we should focus on what future labor markets, if any, will look like, and what the skills are the people have to bring along in order to succeed in those markets. Some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't want to think that too far. I think at present we have a huge demand, and we are not filling that gap. With the use of technology, we can meet those needs. I mean, if you see 25% of the UK population are millennials, and 40% of the workforce, they bring their own devices. And we had a large number of baby boomers who left in 2017. So majority of our workforce are millennials, and we need to teach them as well, because the lifelong learning is one of the key recommendations in the UK setup. So yes, I think in the long run we need to consider that, but at present I think technology has got a big role to fill that gap.
Technology, if it empowers the teacher more than the student, probably it will be more effective in terms of presentation or in terms of attending in the students also. For example, the artificial intelligence, what it is working now, if I go to Google and search something, it keeps on giving the same thing. So this way, if at all a student is asking at least in his mind some doubt, and then the teacher knows it, then throws the things that he needs to practice. If there is some technology which can help his student, help the teacher, who can supply the different needs of the students in the same class, the kind of technology, if that is going to be developed, probably it will be very much effective. Otherwise, it is just, otherwise the things are that assessment engines are all that are more effective, no doubt, and a PowerPoint presentation is also more effective. A flash lesson being made, that also is more effective kind of things, but driven by the teacher, not just by on. I have worked with a company where I was heading the education department, and there the whole digital content was made for K-12. When the presentation comes, when the deadlines come, what most important is the appeal to see, rather than the delivery of the content, the academics that went in, so the appeal, and therefore the figures, how it is looking like, so the content, how it is delivered in terms of visibility. Is it a 2D, is it a 3D? So the lot of time and money went in that, rather than the academics and aesthetics of what that academic delivery has to happen. So if these kind of interventions happen through the technology, it is going to have bad effects. That's what I believe. Otherwise, if the teacher is, as I said, teacher is given a tool which can assess his students, which can make the student also believe what my teacher is saying correct, which is suggested by like psychometric tests or like neurometric tests, which are testing the children.
So I'd just like to say that we live in a world where the child will no longer just believe the teacher. He's a curious soul. He wants to discover things on his own, and it's a balance between the learner and the educator. So they both have to be empowered equally. That's the point that I would like to make here.
Belief system is little bit, with my experience, I can say that belief system is decreasing a little bit because of the too much of intervention from the parents or the grading system, etc. So this belief system is little bit diminishing. So today's students are less belief on the teacher, because in school teachers are also driven by the curriculum, management, grading, etc., etc. So more consumerism has come. Therefore, this belief system is decreasing a little. Yeah.
Even if that might be, I'd like to add just of my own anecdotal experience from the lecture hall. I have the impression it's still on a very high level, yeah, the belief system. What the teacher says is utmost right and correct. And I daily challenge that. So most times, the first thing I say when I get to the classroom is, don't believe a word I'm saying. Yeah? Is it right? Is it wrong? I myself don't know it. Yeah? And it's not important. Yeah? Other things are important, like being skeptical, being curious and attentive, and challenging the world, not consuming it as it comes to you. So, yeah, that's my point on that topic.
Very quickly, if I may, well, yeah, there is actually, this is the very nice part of going back to the title, maybe the second part of the title, The Future of Education, there will be even much more a wider extent of uncertainty that we have to face in the future. And so that's nice, because actually there's parents, this topic was already touched also from the previous panel, the society, and where is the role of the teachers, can you trust me or not, or is my legitimation in front of my students? And so that, and also the generation, you were touching baby boomers, 25% of UK people are saying they're retired. So, well, actually, that's nice. That's a nice part. There is a lot of somehow chaos from the organization point of view is not necessarily a negative thing. So the point is how we are preparing ourselves for managing this interesting enough, let me say, uncertain future. And so basically, and the job market is changing, companies are evolving, we are super interconnected. So we need to change basically the teaching style, the way we approach our students in order to be very credible. We need to understand their learning style. We have done a kind of touching again the generation thing. We did a research that again would be published in 2020, where actually we were analyzing differences in terms of learning styles, comparing baby boomers, the X, the Y, and also the Z or the I, and maybe Alpha in the next future. And it's interesting enough to see some very nice differences. So basically what I want to say is that this is a super huge and interesting change process. And that is maybe first and most important, it's a cultural type of change process. So we need to ask ourselves how much we are driving such process.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, maybe that's the paradox of knowledge. Yeah, we live in a time of maximum knowledge so far, accessible and cheaply accessible, and what comes out of it, even more uncertainty. But maybe we can give that as an impulse to answer some questions or discuss some questions which might be there in the audience on that topic of future of education.
Hi, thank you for the very interesting discussion. I am going to probably take this a little bit off topic because I'm an early years professional, and when I read the topic in the magazine, I came in because in my head I expected something else. When I read the words audio-visual experience, I thought something completely different. In early years, when we use audio-visual, we don't go to technology. In my schools, we do not use technology with their little ones. So for me, an audiovisual tool is myself. So instead of sitting and reading a book in a monotonous way, I would make it animated. So if I tell my children we're going on a bear hunt, we walk around the classroom, we use props and all that. So that's audio and that's visual as well, rather than just reading a book. So for me, that's audiovisual. And it all went to technology. So I was kind of wondering, Does anyone use audiovisual as in very at a basic level, or is it always technology now?
I think we all do. It's a given. We talk to each other, audio and visual, the way we perceive ourselves. We just wanted to speak about how we are moving towards AI. And that's a perspective that we wanted to bring to the room full of educationists here. And of course, there is no stepping away from the audiovisual of the human body, of the human language, and that's exactly how we communicate with each other.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even in healthcare, we do simulation education, so we don't use technology, but we just assume simple role plays and scenarios and create sounds, and we just enact a scenario. Yeah, I agree. It's not always technology.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikita. Other questions?
I wanted to add something, I mean, you talked about, Smriti, you talked about autistic children, and when I work with children on the spectrum, we normally just use props such as, so giving them, we call it a visual timetable.
That's correct.
So things like that.
That's
and,
true.
Okay, so I was kind of, yeah, I thought that is what it was more to do with rather than technology. But yeah, I get it now. It's the future of the education. So
while we
I
do
can see.
the visual timetables, the flashcards and everything, at the moment, I believe because the children are exposed to technology, there is no keeping them away. You can't wheel them from technology in today's times. So when they go in for therapy outside of school or with the children, with parents, they are exposed to some screen time. And we realize that if we enable it, we use technology to our advantage for these children, we might just see some kind of magic happen, and it has kind of helped us.
Thank you very much for this panel. My background is ethics. I'm leading this globeethics.net organization. And I would like to come back to this question of the relationship with the teacher. And what worries me, if you look at the whole development of decline of trust in authorities, is it in public sector, is it in private sector, is it in media, is it in religious organizations, or all these Erdmann barometers every year, and every year the trust in authorities is going down. And that is worrying. It's politically worrying because it means populism is rising, the call for strong political authorities is rising, and I think schooling and education plays a key role of building trust with teachers, with an authority partner, whatever you call a teacher. And I would like to hear you, because I think that's the basic need today, to rebuild trust, and that means a reliable, continuous relationship with a teacher, of the child with the teacher, also the students. I see it with my students also. They are thirsting for trustworthy persons. And that's why the integrity also of the teacher is the key. And so audiovisual, of course, we all use it. It's all very important. But the key is still this human trustworthy relations. I would like to hear your comments on that.
Well, I can give you my thanks for this very interesting, important question, actually. Well, let me give I try to give an example to answer potentially to that question. When I teach to to contextualize a little better my course to the Global Executive MBA, they are senior person, sometimes very senior, and they are very willing to participate, to contribute to the discussion that we have. This can be any place, all right? So I'm not saying necessarily within the physical classroom, any place, whatever it is. But they're willing. They sometimes they have very high number of many years of experience. They have high level of authority. They have many things to say. But the problem is exactly the enabling factor is how much I'm able to create the climate There is trust-based, and so people can start opening up and being much more open, willing to share things. And because we trust each other, we are not creating like an hostile kind of climate. So they are then become willing to participate, to contribute, and we create together the learning experience. But this actually, according to me, to my experience, it's really worth and happen only if we create trust-based environment. And then whatever is the technology, anything else will come afterwards. So I don't know if this practical example, just a way to say that I totally agree with this. It's not easy, maybe not at any type of education system, any level, but that's my point of view on this, yeah.
I'll quickly add to this that I strongly, firmly believe that classrooms are microcosms of societies. Whatever happens in a classroom is exactly what happens outside in a society. So while I am the person who is building trust for my children in the classroom, it's also important for them to know that this is not dictatorship. It's okay, I am around them, I will help them, I'll support them, but they are free to choose the kind of experiences that they'd like under my purview, as long as my children are safe. I think I am the person that they can look up to. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is more about the future of education here. And to me, learning is the linkage between what is and what can be. And whether you're in a work condition or in a working environment or an educational environment, this linkage is more driven by the imagination plus intent. And since we're a victim of our era, you know, we live in a transformational age, we need transformational learning, because otherwise we remove that imagination that drives the intent. We just learn old intent, and we won't be able to cope with this transformational age. So how do you look upon that from a learning perspective in your organization, and how you try to
Yeah, if I can take that one, that's, I think, a really good and pointing to the right spot question. We are living in transformational ages, as you said. I would agree on that. But concluding from that, at least as I understood, that we also need a different, a transformational approach to education, I would deny that entirely. Why would I deny that entirely? At least how we live it in our organization and how I had the pleasure to be educated. The knowledge, the skills you get or learn or acquire make you ready for whatever comes, or at least it should be like that. So even if now times are changing, society is changing, economics is changing, everything is changing, you should stay relaxed in your chair because you have the skills to cope with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. To me, skills is a low level. It's a low level action. You know, like programming is a skill. But what you know, if you have capabilities, you have a high level skill. You have the capabilities to deal with variety. Yeah. But in order to learn that, you have to learn to deal with unexpected to get those capabilities.
Yes.
So, and that's what I'm aiming at. If you remove the imagination and still have the same information driving the intent, you don't train that.
Yes, so I can add on that, and you're right, maybe skill is not capturing the whole picture. So before I was an academic, I was an entrepreneur, and I still am. And if somebody asks me what is an entrepreneur, my answer is feeling safe in uncertain environments. And that's not a skill, that's rather a mindset. I would go even further, it's a philosophy, a way of thinking and perceiving the world. And maybe now comes up another question from that. Is it possible to learn that or not? I don't know. I hope so.
Okay, I think we can wrap it up, and we will move on to the awards.
Yes.
Thank you very much, panelists.
Thank you.
It was a very interesting discussion.